Thanksgiving was always a big deal in our family. My mother's roast turkey, the endless pies, the loud arguments over board games, and the inevitable storytelling that ended with someone crying or laughing so hard they'd choke on their wine. It was messy. It was imperfect. But it was ours. So when my phone stayed silent this year, no text about the menu, no group chat full of chaotic planning, I figured something was wrong. Maybe Mom was overwhelmed. Maybe the tradition had just gotten too hard to keep up. I waited, checking my phone more often than I cared to admit. But the silence stretched on. Finally, I called her. "Hey, Mom," I said lightly, pretending not to feel the tightness in my chest. "Just wondering what the plan is for Thanksgiving this year." "Oh, sweetie," she replied, her tone syrupy but brittle underneath. "We're not doing anything this year. Everyone's just too busy. Work, travel, you know how it is." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Right. Yeah. Makes sense, I guess. But it didn't. Not really. Because just last month during my niece's birthday party, my sister Jenna wouldn't stop talking about how excited she was for Mom's stuffing and Dad's weird cranberry sauce from the can. They were already making plans then. So what changed? Or rather, what hadn't changed? I, Ella Montgomery, the quiet one, the divorcee, the one who'd taken time off from her own healing to help Mom when she had surgery last spring, I was the only one who hadn't changed. And maybe that was the problem. My sister had once joked that I was the family's soft spot. I thought it was affectionate. Now I realize it might have been a warning. The days passed. No texts, no calls, no group photo like every year, with everyone wearing flannel and holding up wine glasses. Maybe they really weren't doing anything. I told myself I didn't care. I had work to catch up on anyway. Maybe I'd order Chinese food and watch a movie. But on Thanksgiving Day, around noon, the quiet in my apartment felt suffocating. The city outside was deserted. The only sound was the low hum of my refrigerator and the clinking of forks and knives I imagined from every other apartment on the block. So I grabbed my coat and decided to walk. Maybe I'd grab a coffee? Clear my head. That's when I saw it. Through the frosted window of that cozy Italian place my parents loved. There they were. All of them. Mom, Dad, Jenna, her husband, my 2 nephews. Even Uncle Ray, who supposedly couldn't travel this year because of his back. They were seated around a large, candle-lit table, plates piled high with food, laughter erupting from the group like music. I froze. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing. It was a choice. I stood outside for a full minute before pushing the door open, driven more by instinct than logic. The warmth and noise hit me all at once. Laughter, silverware clinking, the scent of roasted garlic and butter. Heads turned. Conversation halted. Jenna saw me first. Her smile faded. "What are you doing here?" she asked, blinking. "I was just walking by," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. Mom recovered first. "Ella, we didn't think you'd want to come. You've been so busy with everything." "Everything?" "You told me Thanksgiving was off," I said, my voice shaking. My father cleared his throat, suddenly interested in his water glass. Jenna leaned back in her chair, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Well, maybe we just thought it'd be more comfortable this way." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "You don't really belong in this family anymore," she said. And then, laughter. Like it was a joke. Like I was the punchline. I didn't cry. Not then. I simply nodded, turned, and walked out. The cold air outside slapped my face, but it felt kinder than anything that had just happened inside. I walked home in a daze, numb to the cars passing, the holiday lights twinkling in storefronts, the smell of turkey wafting from every direction. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from work. I deleted it without reading. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the ceiling for hours. I thought about all the years I'd been there for them. How many times I'd rearranged my life to show up. The holidays I'd spent cooking when Mom was sick. The birthdays I'd planned for Jenna's kids. The nights I'd held her hand through her own divorce. And now I was just cut out. Like I didn't exist. Like I had never existed. But I wasn't going to cry. Not that night. Because deep inside, something else was beginning to stir. Something stronger than grief. Something colder than disappointment. Something that would wait until tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up early. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because sleep had become impossible. My mind kept replaying the scene in that restaurant on a loop. My sister's smug face, my mother's silence, the way everyone had just gone along with it. Like I was a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I kept wondering how long they had planned it. When exactly had they decided I wasn't worth inviting? Had they laughed about it? Felt guilty for even a second? The house was silent. No texts, no apologies, not even a passive-aggressive, "Hope you're okay." And that silence said everything. I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in years. I started writing it all down. Every moment, every memory, every time I'd been pushed to the side or made to feel small. I didn't know what I was writing it for. Closure? Clarity? A reminder? Maybe all three. I poured myself a cup of coffee and stood by the window. Snow was beginning to fall lightly, just enough to dust the streets and soften the city's usual harsh edges. But inside me, everything felt sharp. And then I remembered something. 3 weeks ago, my mom had asked me for a recipe. My sweet potato casserole. Said she wanted to try something new for a possible future gathering. I hadn't thought anything of it. Just emailed her the recipe and went back to work. But now it hit me like a slap. They had already been planning it. They just didn't want me there. It wasn't that I was forgotten. I was excluded. And then, as if the universe needed to twist the knife a little deeper, a photo popped up on my phone. A push notification from Jenna's Instagram. A picture of the table from last night. Everyone smiling. Even Mom, who hadn't smiled like that in any photo I'd seen in years. The caption read, "Grateful for the ones who matter most." I stared at the screen, my hand trembling. Family first. I wanted to scream, or throw my phone, or curl up and disappear. But instead I took a screenshot. It felt like evidence. Evidence of what exactly I wasn't sure yet. But something inside me had shifted. The sadness was still there, but something colder was wrapping around it. Resolve. After everything I'd done, after all the years I'd bent myself to fit into the mold they'd made for me, I had been erased without hesitation. And not one of them had the decency to call. They could play family all they wanted. Post their curated joy online for strangers. Pretend they were whole. But I knew the cracks. I knew who paid Mom's electric bill last December when Jenna forgot her wallet and they came up short. I knew who drove 3 hours at 2 a.m. to pick up Dad when he got stranded in a snowstorm after a poker night gone too long. And I knew who held my mother's hand in the hospital when she was recovering from her hysterectomy, when Jenna didn't show up because her kids had the sniffles. They'd conveniently forgotten all that. But I hadn't. That night, I pulled out a box from under my bed, one I hadn't opened in over a year. Inside were old photo albums, birthday cards, and letters from my grandmother, who had passed away 5 years ago. She was the only one in our family who had ever truly seen me. The only one who noticed when I was struggling, who called me just to say she loved me, who told me not to dim my light for anyone. Even blood. One letter stood out. Dated November 2012. Ella, never let people convince you that love and loyalty are the same thing. Some will love you only when it benefits them. And when it doesn't, they'll act like you never existed. Pay attention. And walk away when you need to. Love, Grandma. I hadn't understood it then. I did now. The next day, I drove 2 hours to visit her grave. I hadn't been in a long time. Something I felt ashamed about. But when I stood there in the snow, I didn't feel judged. I felt safe. Like she would have known what to say. Like she would have grabbed me by the shoulders and reminded me, "You are not the problem. They are." I stood there for a long time, letting the wind cut through my coat, letting the silence wrap around me. And then I made a decision. If they wanted me to stay silent, stay invisible, I would do the opposite. I wouldn't explode. I wouldn't confront them in a rage. I would start by taking back my voice. Because if they thought Thanksgiving was the end of the story, they had no idea what was coming next. 3 days passed after Thanksgiving. Still no word from any of them. Not my mother, not my father, not Jenna. Nothing. It was like I'd been officially voted off the island and they had no intention of acknowledging the fallout. And that silence, that cowardice, spoke louder than anything they could have said. At first, I thought maybe I should reach out. Ask them why. Beg them to explain. But then I remembered the laughter. The way Jenna said, "You don't belong in this family." Like it was a long-held truth just waiting for the right moment to slip out. I wasn't going to chase people who had already decided I didn't matter. But that didn't mean I was going to stay quiet either. It started small. I unfollowed them on social media. Took down the framed family photo in my hallway. The one from 3 Thanksgivings ago, when I'd hosted dinner at my place because Mom had thrown out her back. That year, I did everything. Decorated the apartment, cooked for 12 people, made personalized place cards Jenna scoffed at. They smiled for the photos, praised my pie, and then, weeks later, forgot to invite me to Dad's birthday dinner. I'd told myself it was a misunderstanding, a scheduling mix-up. It wasn't. Looking back, there had been dozens of moments like that. Quiet cuts, small exclusions, inside jokes I wasn't part of. Events I found out about from photos, not invitations. They'd been peeling me away from the family picture for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. But now that I had, there was no going back. On Monday, I returned to work. My coworkers asked how my Thanksgiving was, and I gave them the practice smile I'd used my whole life. It was quiet, just what I needed. I lied. But inside, I was a storm. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't just grieving a dinner or a tradition. I was grieving a family I thought I had. A version of them I'd created in my head. One where I was loved without conditions. One where I belonged. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their acceptance. And for what? So they could discard me the moment I stopped being convenient? That night, I started going through my finances. Over the last 6 years, I'd loaned my parents over $18,000. Most of it temporary, always with promises to pay it back. But not a single cent had returned. I'd paid for a new refrigerator when theirs broke down. Covered Jenna's car repair after she couldn't get approved for financing. Even pitched in for my nephew's school trip because Jenna said things were tight that month. I wasn't bitter about the money. Not then, at least. I believed that family helped each other. But what they'd shown me now? That kindness had never been mutual. It had been expected. And I had been taken advantage of. I created a spreadsheet, listing every transaction, every loan, every gift that was supposed to come with appreciation, but only earned me silence. The total made my stomach turn. Not because of the number, but because of what it represented. I wasn't a daughter or a sister to them. I was an account number. I printed the list and folded it into an envelope. I wasn't sure what I would do with it yet. But just having it in my hand gave me a strange sense of control, like I'd finally named the thing that had been eating at me for years. The next day, a text came in. It was from Jenna. "Hey, hope you're okay. Mom says you've been distant. Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the screen for a long time. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just another veiled attempt to pretend nothing had happened. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and began typing something I never thought I'd write. Boundaries I am setting with my family. I listed 10. Some were practical. No more loans, no more last-minute favors. Some were emotional. If they can't respect me in public, they don't get access to me in private. I don't owe them my silence to keep the peace. And at the end, I wrote, I will no longer shrink to fit into spaces where I was never meant to belong. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. But I knew this wasn't over. They weren't going to let go that easily. Not after years of leaning on me, guilt-tripping me, depending on my willingness to keep the family glued together with duct tape and denial. I wasn't ready to confront them. Not yet. But when I did, it wasn't going to be with tears. It was going to be with facts, receipts, and the truth. Because if they thought I'd stay quiet forever, they had seriously underestimated me. It was a week after Thanksgiving when my mother finally called. Not texted. Called. I stared at the screen as it rang, debating whether to answer. My heart thudded in my chest, not because I missed her voice, but because I knew exactly how this was going to go. She would pretend nothing happened. She'd act confused. She'd say I was being too sensitive. Still, I picked up. Hi, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, she breathed, as if she'd been holding her breath for days. I've been so worried about you. Jenna said you've been acting distant. There it was. The opening line of every gaslighting monologue. You're the problem. I stayed silent for a beat too long, then said, I saw the pictures. The line went quiet. I saw all of you at the restaurant. I continued, my voice level. You told me Thanksgiving was canceled, but it wasn't. I walked in. You looked me in the eye. And no one said a word. Her voice was tight now. That was a misunderstanding. No, I said. It was a decision. She exhaled sharply the way she did when she was preparing to scold. Ella, I don't know what's gotten into you. You've been so emotional lately. You always assume the worst. I felt my fingers curl into the couch cushion. The old me would have apologized by now. Tried to smooth things over. Asked what she needed to feel better. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. I'm not being emotional, Mom. I'm being honest. For once. There was a pause. Then the switch flipped. Her tone softened, sugary sweet. We didn't want to hurt you. We just thought maybe you'd feel uncomfortable around everyone. After everything you've been through this year, the divorce, your job stress, you've been so sensitive. There it was again. That word. Sensitive. It was her favorite weapon, making me feel like I was the one who needed fixing. You mean the divorce I went through alone? I asked quietly. The one none of you showed up for? The one you dismissed because at least he didn't hit you? She went quiet again. You're right, I added. I have been sensitive. Because I've been surviving. Because I've been putting everyone else first for so long, I forgot what it felt like to put myself first. Ella, she whispered, now switching to guilt. We're family. We make mistakes, but we stick together. Do we? Yes, she insisted. We're all we have. No, I said. You had me, and you made a choice to pretend I didn't exist. I hung up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for doing it, but I knew that wasn't going to be the end of it. The next day, Jenna called. I let it go to voicemail. She left one message, sharp, clipped, full of fake concern. Mom said you're spiraling. Look, I know you're hurt, but honestly, you've always been dramatic. We didn't mean to exclude you, but it's exhausting walking on eggshells around you. You always make everything about you. Maybe this break is good for everyone. I sat on my bed listening to it twice. Not because I believed a word of it, but because I needed to hear it. Needed to hear the truth of how they saw me. A burden, an inconvenience, a problem they didn't want to solve. So I decided to solve it for them. I printed out the spreadsheet, the one with every loan, every payment, every time I bailed them out. I wrote a short, clear note and mailed it to my parents' house. This is what I've contributed to the family in the last 6 years. Going forward, I will no longer provide financial support. I am no longer available for one-sided relationships. If you wish to be in my life, it will be on mutual, respectful terms. This is not an invitation for debate. It is a boundary. No flowers, no emojis, no love you anyway. Just the truth. It felt cold, but necessary. I didn't expect a thank you, and I didn't get one. Instead, 2 days later, I received a group text from my father. This family is falling apart. Hope you're happy, Ella. I didn't respond, because I was happy. Not because the family was falling apart, but because I was finally stepping out from the rubble they'd buried me in for years. What they didn't know was that I wasn't done, because the past was still hanging over me, and I was finally ready to clean house. It was a gray Friday afternoon when Aunt Marlene called. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year, and even then it had only been a birthday card exchange. She was my mother's older sister, blunt, sharp as glass, and always a bit of a mystery. She'd moved 3 states away after a falling out with my parents years ago, and no one ever told me why. I let it ring twice before answering. Ella, she said, her voice crackling through the line like an old radio. I heard what happened on Thanksgiving. My stomach tensed. Did Mom call you? Number Jenna did. Tried to get me on their side, I suppose. Thought I'd help talk some sense into you. She scoffed. Didn't realize that child had the nerve. I was silent, unsure where this was going. I told her she should be ashamed, Marlene continued. And I told her something else. Something I think you should know. My heart skipped. What? It's about your inheritance. I blinked. Inheritance? What inheritance? There was a pause. Your grandmother left something for you. In her will. But your parents never told you. I found out 2 years ago when the lawyer reached out to confirm the distribution. They told him not to contact you directly. That they'd handle it. I sat up, blood roaring in my ears. She left me something? Why wouldn't they tell me? I asked your mother the same question, she said, her tone tightening. She said you didn't need it. That you had your career, your fancy job, your apartment. That Jenna had kids, and it made more sense for her to get a little more. My breath caught in my throat. How much? I asked. $35,000, she replied flatly. A savings account your grandmother opened in your name when you turned 21. She wrote you a letter, too. Said it was for your first home, or to start a business or something that mattered to you. My hands were shaking. I only found out the full details when I went to visit the lawyer myself, she continued. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but after what they did to you on Thanksgiving, I couldn't stay silent. $35,000. That was more than I'd ever had in savings at any one time. And they had hidden it, lied about it, reallocated it like it was theirs to give. I felt sick. How? I asked. How did they even access it? Your mother had partial custody of the account, Marlene explained. She was added when your grandmother got sick and wanted someone to help manage it. But it was in your name. She must have used it. I don't know exactly when or how, but it's gone now. Gone. Just like that. I remembered all the times I'd said no to a weekend trip with friends because I needed to stay on budget. The freelance gigs I took to cover unexpected expenses. The years I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls because I was being responsible. And they had been sitting on my money the entire time. I'm sorry, Ella, Marlene said gently. I know it's a lot, but I thought you deserved to know. Thank you, I whispered. We talked for another 10 minutes. She promised to send me a copy of the lawyer's letter. As soon as we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd robbed me. My own family, my flesh and blood, had stolen from me under the guise of what's best for the family. They'd taken money meant to help me build a future and used it to, what? Bail Jenna out of credit card debt? Help her husband launch another failed business? I opened the spreadsheet I'd made, the one listing every loan, every sacrifice. Then I opened a new document and titled it, What They Took Without Asking. By the time I finished writing, my hands were numb, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. I couldn't unsee it now. The financial abuse, the emotional manipulation, the rewriting of history. They had built a version of the family where I was always the outsider, the helper, the fallback, the giver, but never the one who deserved anything. But that narrative was ending. Right now. Because this time I wasn't going to sit down and stay quiet. This time they were going to hear me. I didn't confront them right away. I waited. Not out of fear, but intention. I needed time to prepare, to gather everything. Screenshots of texts, bank statements. The printed will excerpt Aunt Marlene mailed me. I wanted to be bulletproof, because I knew exactly how they'd respond. Twisting facts, rewriting history, crying until guilt replaced truth. But not this time. This time, I would control the story. I invited them over under the guise of a conversation. Jenna arrived first, looking put together and smug, like she was coming to a PTA meeting she already planned to dominate. My parents followed, visibly confused. My mother smiled hesitantly. My father looked irritated, like I'd inconvenienced him. We sat in my living room. I didn't offer drinks. I didn't ask about their day. Instead, I laid the folder on the coffee table. "What's this?" my mother asked, eyes narrowing. "Proof," I said simply. My voice was calm, not cold, steady. I'd rehearsed this a dozen times, but the moment still carried weight. "I know about the inheritance," I continued. "The account Grandma opened for me, the one you emptied." My mother paled. My father shifted in his seat. "Ella, it wasn't like that." "You told the lawyer not to contact me," I cut in. "You knew it was meant for me. She wrote me a letter. You chose to keep it." "We didn't keep it," Jenna chimed in, arms crossed. "We used it for the family." I turned to her slowly. "You mean you used it? For yourself? For your lifestyle? Your family was the priority, not mine." "We did what we thought was best," my mother said, reaching for her soft maternal tone. "You were doing fine on your own. Jenna had more needs." "You mean she had more demands, and you enabled them." I opened the folder and slid out the spreadsheet. "This is everything I've paid on your behalf over the last 6 years. Every loan, every expense, every time I covered your bills because you couldn't, or wouldn't." "You didn't have to do that," my father muttered. "But I did," I said, "because I believed I was helping my family. I believed you saw me, valued me. I was wrong." They didn't speak. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued. "I'm cutting off all financial support, effective immediately. No more transfers, no more covering shortfalls. And as for the money Grandma left me, I'm giving you 2 options." They looked at me like I'd grown another head. "1, I said. "You sign a repayment agreement and return the funds in monthly installments. We'll go through a mediator. Or 2, I go to the authorities and report the account as financial fraud. I've spoken to a lawyer. It's a real option." "You'd report your own parents?" My mother gasped, tears springing into her eyes. "You stole from your own daughter," I replied. "I'm not the one who broke this family." My father stood up, face red. "This is ridiculous. You've been brainwashed. That woman, Marlene, she always wanted to ruin us." "She didn't ruin you," I said. "You did." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The truth sat heavy in the air, undeniable and sharp. "I don't want revenge," I added. "I want accountability. I want distance. I want peace." Silence. Then my mother spoke, barely above a whisper. "You're serious about this?" "I've never been more serious." Jenna scoffed. "You're so self-righteous. All this over one holiday dinner?" "No," I said, locking eyes with her. "All this because I finally realized I was never part of this family in the way I pretended to be. And I'm done pretending." They didn't sign anything that day. Of course they didn't. But they left, and this time I didn't cry when the door closed. The next week, I followed through, sent everything to the mediator, blocked their numbers, started therapy again. Got a call from HR about an internal opportunity abroad, a promotion I'd never considered before, but suddenly felt like a door I was finally allowed to walk through. A month later, a check arrived. No note, no apology, just $500 and a blank line at the bottom. Payment 1 of 70. They'd chosen the repayment. I didn't feel triumph. I felt free. The piece wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet, steady, like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. I bought a small painting for my living room, booked a solo trip to Colorado for the spring, put a down payment on a new car, all with my own money. No guilt, no invisible strings. And on Thanksgiving the following year, I cooked a dinner for myself and a few friends who'd become family. People who had shown up without being asked, who gave without keeping score. No one laughed at my presence. No one made me feel like I didn't belong. Because I did. I always had. I just needed to stop asking the wrong people to see it.
My mom and stepdad secretly used all my hard-earned money to buy an apartment for their daughter, so I forced them to face the fact either they return the money or I call return the cops. They laughed at me and I did it. I remember the day my parents sat me down in our living room like it was yesterday. I was 7, wearing my favorite purple dress with butterflies, clutching my worn teddy bear as mom and dad explained they wouldn't be living together anymore. They were so calm about it. No screaming, no throwing things, just two adults who'd fallen out of love deciding to go their separate ways. I didn't cry. Maybe I was too young to really understand what was happening. They divided everything so neatly. The house went to mom, dad moved into a new apartment, and I got 2 bedrooms. The custody arrangement was simple. 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad. And dad, being dad, made sure mom and I were well taken care of financially. About a year after the divorce, dad met Sarah. I still remember the first time he introduced us at a local diner. She had kind eyes and a warm smile, and her son Tommy was sitting next to her playing with his French fries. "Hi, Brittany," Sarah said, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Your dad's told me so much about you." Tommy looked up from his plate. "Are you going to be my sister?" I liked them immediately. Sarah didn't try too hard or act fake nice like some of dad's previous dates. She was just real. And Tommy, who was 3 years younger than me, became the brother I never had. Around the same time, mom started dating Richard. He moved in pretty quickly, and I noticed mom seemed different, distracted, always touching her stomach when she thought no one was looking. They got married in a small ceremony at City Hall, and 2 months later, my half-sister Emily was born. I remember standing in the room looking at this tiny pink bundle in mom's arms. Richard was hovering over them both, completely absorbed. I stood in the corner, shifting from foot to foot, feeling like I was watching a family portrait being painted, one that didn't include me. Dad and Sarah got married that same year. Their wedding was different. They made sure Tommy and I felt included in everything. Sarah even let me help pick out her dress. And during the ceremony, Dad made sure to include special vows to both Tommy and me. "Today I'm not just gaining a wife," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm gaining another child to love, and our 2 amazing kids are gaining a bigger family." That night, as Sarah tucked me into bed in my room at their house, she kissed my forehead and said, "You know, Brittany, I always wanted a daughter. Thank you for letting me be part of your life." I hugged her tight, already knowing that while my family situation wasn't typical, I was lucky to have at least one home where I truly belonged. Life at mom's house changed after Emily was born. It wasn't anything dramatic, no harsh words or cruel treatment. It was more like I was slowly fading into the background, becoming a ghost in my own home. Mom quit her job to become a full-time housewife and everything began revolving around Emily. At first I tried to tell myself it was normal. Of course a baby needs more attention. But as the months passed, the forgetting started. Little things at first, then bigger ones. I remember standing outside school in the rain, watching other kids leave with their parents after the parent-teacher conference. Mrs. Johnson, my 4th grade teacher, waited with me for almost an hour before calling Mom. "Oh God, was that today?" Mom's voice crackled through the phone. "I'm so sorry. I was at Emily's Mommy and Me class. Can we reschedule?" We never did reschedule. Richard just picked me up that day, barely glancing at me as he drove home, talking on his phone about work the whole time. Then came my 10th birthday. I woke up excited, running downstairs, expecting at least a happy birthday from Mom. Instead, I found her cooing over Emily in the kitchen. "Mom," I said, hovering by the doorway. "Do you know what day it is?" She looked up, distracted. "Tuesday? Oh, I need to take Emily to her doctor's appointment." I stood there, my heart sinking. "It's my birthday." Oh, her eyes widened. "Oh, Brittany, I'm so sorry. We'll celebrate this weekend, okay? I just have so much going on today with Emily's checkup." But the weekend came and went, and no one mentioned my birthday again. It became easier to spend time at Dad's house. Sarah always made sure my favorite snacks were in the pantry, and Tommy and I would spend hours playing video games or doing homework together. Dad never missed a single school event, and Sarah often came too, taking pictures and beaming like I was her own daughter. I started spending more and more time there. A few days turned into weeks, then months. Mom barely seemed to notice. When I was at her house, she was always busy with Emily, feeding her, playing with her, taking her to play dates. Richard would come home from work, kiss Emily on the forehead, and retreat to his home office. Sometimes I wondered if they'd even notice if I disappeared completely. After about 6 months of me basically living at Dad's full time, he decided to make it official. "I called your mom today," he told me one evening. "I think it makes sense for you to live here permanently. You're already here most of the time anyway, and I told her I'd stop the alimony payment since I'm taking care of you full time now." Within hours, Mom was at the door, all worried looks and loving words. "Sweetie, I've missed you so much," she said, hugging me for the first time in what felt like forever. "I've been thinking about everything, and I want us to go back to our original arrangement. I want you home with me half the time like before." I was 12 by then, old enough to see through it. The sudden concern, the promises to do better, it wasn't about missing me. It was about the money. Dad's alimony checks were the real reason she wanted me back. Emily was 5 when she started rubbing it in my face. She'd follow me around the house with this smug little smile, dropping her bombs when Mom and Richard weren't within earshot. "Daddy says you're not really part of our family," she told me one day while I was doing homework at the kitchen table. "He says you're just visiting." I tried to ignore her, focusing on my math problems, but she kept going. "Mommy and Daddy love me more than you. Last night, Daddy told Mommy he was tired of you being here, and Mommy said just wait until you turn 18, then the money stops and you'll be gone." It hurt, of course it did, but I'd learned to build walls around that pain. I had Dad and Sarah, who showed me what real family love looked like. I had Tommy, who was more of a sibling to me than Emily would ever be. Still, hearing your own mother basically counting down the days until she didn't have to deal with you anymore, that leaves scars. The years crawled by until finally I made it to high school graduation. I sat between my two families during the ceremony, Dad, Sarah, and Tommy on one side, Mom, Richard, and Emily on the other. It felt like sitting between two different worlds. After the ceremony, Dad hugged me tight. "We're so proud of you, Princess." Meanwhile, Mom and Richard were already talking about my departure before we even left the school parking lot. "So," Richard said, jingling his car keys, "have you started packing yet?" They didn't ask about my college plans. Didn't care that I'd gotten into the business program with a partial scholarship. Didn't even pretend to be interested in my future. They just wanted to know when I'd be out of their hair. 2 weeks later, I moved my things to Dad's house. I remember sitting in his living room, nervous about asking for help with college expenses, even though I knew he'd never refuse. "Dad, I got accepted to the financial analyst program," I said, playing with the acceptance letter in my hands. I got a partial scholarship, but before I could finish, Dad and Sarah exchanged glances and smiled. "We've already got it covered, honey," Sarah said, pulling out a folder. "We've been saving for your college fund since you were 8. I spent that summer working at the Silver Spoon Cafe, saving every penny I could. My shifts were mostly morning ones, which left my afternoons free to spend time with my real family. Tommy and I would go to movies. Sarah taught me to cook proper meals for when I'd be living in the dorm, and Dad just kept being Dad, always there with advice or a hug when I needed one. Mom never called to ask about my plans, never stopped by to see how I was doing, never seemed to care that her oldest daughter was about to leave for college. But by then, I'd stopped expecting her to care. College life started in a blur of new faces and experiences. My dorm room was tiny but cozy, and my roommate Jenny was nice enough, though we never became close friends. Between classes and my job at the campus cafe, I barely had time to breathe, but I made sure to call Dad and Sarah at least twice a week. They came to visit whenever they could, and Tommy would tag along, complaining about having to carry my laundry basket but always bringing me my favorite snacks from home. Mom never called, not once. My 19th birthday came and went without even a text message from her. I shouldn't have checked my phone that day, shouldn't have hoped, but old habits die hard. Later that night, I made the mistake of checking her Facebook page. There they were, dozens of pictures of her perfect family, Mom, Richard, and Emily at the beach. Emily's dance recitals, family dinners, holiday celebrations, each photo carefully staged to show their happiness, each caption talking about family time and loving my family. I wasn't in any of them, of course. I'd been cropped out of their family portrait long ago. I threw myself into my studies after that, determined to prove that I didn't need their approval to succeed. The years flew by, and before I knew it, I was walking across the stage to receive my diploma in financial analysis. Dad cheered so loud, you'd have thought I'd won an Olympic medal. After graduation, Sarah approached me with an opportunity. Her brother Mark ran a successful investment firm in our hometown, and she'd mentioned my academic achievements to him. The interview with Mark went well. He was professional but warm, reminding me a bit of Sarah in the way he got straight to the point while still making you feel at ease. "Your credentials are impressive," he said, reviewing my resume. "But I need to be clear, the fact that you're my sister's stepdaughter won't earn you any favors here. You'll have to prove yourself just like everyone else." "I wouldn't want it any other way," I replied. I got the job and rented a small one-bedroom apartment near the office. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked harder than I'd ever worked before, taking on the projects nobody else wanted, staying late to perfect financial models, developing comprehensive growth strategies for our clients. The results spoke for themselves. Client portfolios under my management showed remarkable growth. The company's revenue increased significantly, and Mark noticed. He didn't play favorites, but he did believe in rewarding good work. The bonuses and raises came because I'd earned them, not because I was family. The first thing I did with my surprise year-end bonus was buy gifts for my real family. A new golf set for Dad, who'd been using the same clubs for 15 years. A spa weekend package for Sarah, who never splurged on herself. The latest gaming console for Tommy, who was still using his old one from high school. Watching them open their gifts, seeing their genuine happiness and surprise, I felt something settle in my chest. I might have been cut out of one family photo album, but I'd found my place in a better one. After 5 years of hard work, I had a solid plan. Every month I put away a chunk of my salary into my savings account. I'd researched the housing market thoroughly, looking for the perfect property. I wanted something modest but comfortable, maybe with a small garden. Most importantly, I wanted to make a substantial down payment to keep the monthly mortgage payments manageable. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was at my desk, reviewing quarterly reports when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in years. "Brittany, sweetie." Mom's voice was syrupy sweet. "I've been thinking about you so much lately." I nearly dropped my coffee. 9 years of silence, and now this? "How are you, Mom?" I kept my voice neutral. "Oh, honey, I miss you. We all do. Why don't you come over for dinner this weekend? Emily's home from college, and Richard's making his famous pot roast." Curiosity got the better of me. That Saturday I pulled up to my old house in my new Mercedes. Nothing flashy but reliable and professional. Emily answered the door, looking me up and down with poorly concealed interest. "Nice car," she said by way of greeting. The house hadn't changed much. Same furniture, same family photos on the walls, still none of me. Mom rushed forward to hug me, acting like we'd just seen each other yesterday. "Darling, you look fantastic. So professional in that suit. Richard, doesn't she look successful?" Richard nodded, pulling out my chair. "We heard you're doing very well at Mark's company. The family grapevine says you're one of their top performers." Throughout dinner they peppered me with questions about my job, my salary, my car. Mom kept mentioning how expensive everything was these days, especially with Emily in college. "That's such a beautiful watch," Mom commented, reaching for my wrist. "Must have cost a fortune." I smiled politely. "It was a birthday gift from Dad and Sarah." "Of course it was," she said, her smile tightening slightly. "They always did spoil you." That dinner turned into more invitations. Suddenly, Mom wanted to be part of my life again. She'd call regularly, stop by my apartment unannounced with Emily in tow, invite me to family dinners. Emily would wander around my modest apartment, examining everything with calculating eyes. "This place is kind of small," she commented once. "I thought you made good money." I kept my responses vague. "It suits my needs." Mom would chime in, "But surely you're planning to upgrade soon? With your salary." I just smile and change the subject. Something about their sudden interest in my life made me uneasy. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Emily was over at my apartment, supposedly to bond with her big sister. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her gasp from my living room. "Oh my God," she said, staring at my laptop screen. I'd left my banking app open after paying some bills. "Is that really how much money you have saved?" I quickly walked over and closed the laptop. "It's not polite to look at other people's private information, Emily." She ignored my comment. "Why are you saving so much? What's it for?" I hesitated but figured there was no harm in telling her. "I'm planning to buy a house soon. I want to make a good down payment to keep the mortgage payments reasonable." Emily just nodded, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She left shortly after, making some excuse about meeting friends. The very next day, Mom called to invite me to dinner. As soon as I sat down at their dining table, I knew something was up. Mom had that look she used to get when she was about to ask Dad for more child support. "Emily tells me you're quite the saver," she said, passing the potatoes. "That's wonderful, honey. You know, Emily's having such a hard time with college expenses, and she'll need an apartment after graduation." I took a bite of my food, saying nothing. "It would be so nice if her successful big sister could help her out," Mom continued, her voice dripping with suggestion. "Family helping family, you know?" I put down my fork. "I don't understand what you're getting at, Mom." "Oh, come on, Brittany," she said, dropping the sweet act. "You're clearly doing very well for yourself. Emily needs help with an apartment, and you have more than enough money saved up. It would be the right thing to do." I looked at her incredulously. "The right thing to do? You mean give Emily my house down payment?" "Well, you're already established in your career," Richard chimed in. "Emily's just starting out. She needs the help more than you do." "I'm not established," I said firmly. "I'm working hard and saving my money to build my own future. I'm not giving Emily my savings." Mom's face darkened. "So you're just going to let your sister struggle while you sit on a pile of money after all we've done for you?" I almost laughed at that. "All you've done for me? Like what exactly? Forget my birthdays? Ignore me for years? Push me aside for Emily? You're being selfish," Richard muttered, not quite meeting my eyes. "A real sister would want to help. A real mother would have been there for both her daughters." I shot back, standing up. "I'm taking care of myself first. Emily is your responsibility, not mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom sat there, jaw clenched, while Richard glared at his plate. Emily wasn't at this dinner, but I could imagine her reaction when they told her later. Poor Emily, whose selfish big sister wouldn't give her a free apartment. 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I had to leave for a business trip to Singapore. Mark had trusted me with an important client presentation, and I'd be out of reach for most of the time due to the time difference and packed schedule. "I'll be gone for about 10 days, I told Mom when she called, trying to maintain some semblance of politeness despite our recent argument. "Just letting you know I'll be out of contact." "Oh, overseas? How nice for you," she replied, her voice oddly interested. "The trip went well, but when I landed back home my phone exploded with as soon as I turned off airplane mode. Banking alerts. Dozens of them. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through them. Account transfer. $100,750. The world started spinning. I rushed home, opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. There it was, a massive transfer to an account I didn't recognize, but the name on the transfer, Patricia Warren, my mother's name. I drove to their house like a woman possessed. My banking app screenshots pulled up on my phone. When I pounded on their door, Richard answered with a smug look that made my blood boil. "Where is she?" I demanded, pushing past him. Mom was sitting in the living room, calm as could be, flipping through a magazine. "Oh, you're back. How was your trip?" I thrust my phone in her face. "What is this? How did you transfer money from my account?" She barely glanced at the screen. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me. It's right here, a transfer to your account." "How did you do it?" Mom finally dropped the innocent act. She put down her magazine and smiled. Actually smiled. "Fine. Yes, I transferred the money. Emily needs an apartment and you weren't being cooperative, so we helped ourselves." "How did you even get into my apartment?" My voice was shaking. "Oh, honey." She reached into her purse and held up a key. "Remember when I borrowed your bathroom that day I visited? It only takes a minute to make a copy." I felt sick to my stomach. "Give me my money back now, or I'm going to the police." Mom actually laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. You won't go to the police. I'm your mother. Besides, you can always save up again. You have a good job, no responsibilities. Emily needs this more than you do. We've already found her the perfect apartment." "I'm serious," I cut her off. "Return my money or what?" Mom sneered. "You'll send your own mother to jail? Please, you don't have the spine." Richard grabbed my arm and started pushing me toward the door. "I think it's time for you to leave. This is your last chance," I warned them. "Give me back my money." Mom's only response was to wave goodbye with a smirk. Richard shoved me out onto the porch and slammed the door in my face. The police station was quiet that night. I sat across from Detective Martinez, my hands steady as I filled out the complaint form. I had everything documented: the unauthorized transfer, screenshots of the banking app, text messages with my mother about my business trip. Richard called me that same night, his voice alternating between threats and pleas. "You need to withdraw the complaint," he demanded. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to your mother? Your mother's crying." I hung up. Let her cry. I'd cried plenty of times over the years because of her. The legal process moved surprisingly quickly. The evidence was overwhelming, and Mom's arrogant admission to the theft didn't help her case. She sat in the courtroom, playing the role of the repentant mother, tears streaming down her face as she promised to return every penny. "I just wanted to help my younger daughter," she sobbed to the judge. I let my maternal instincts cloud my judgment. I almost laughed out loud. "Maternal instincts? Since when?" The judge wasn't impressed. "Mrs. Warren, your maternal instincts led you to commit premeditated theft and fraud against your other daughter. The only reason you're not going to prison is that you've agreed to make full restitution and have no prior criminal record." She got a suspended sentence and was ordered to return my money within 30 days. I got a restraining order against both her and Richard just to be safe. Dad and Sarah were with me through all of it. They sat behind me in court, brought me dinner when I was too exhausted to cook, and never once said "I told you so" about letting Mom back into my life. "You did the right thing," Sarah told me after the sentencing. "They needed to learn they couldn't take advantage of you anymore." Tommy, in his typical fashion, tried to lighten the mood. "Well, at least now you know for sure which family actually loves you." He was right. The lines were clear now. I had my real family: Dad, Sarah, Tommy, even Mark, who'd been incredibly supportive through the whole ordeal. And then there were the others: Mom, Richard, Emily, who'd shown their true colors in the most dramatic way possible. 6 months have passed since then. My money is back in my account, earning interest while I house hunt. I've got my eye on a lovely 3-bedroom colonial with a fenced backyard, just 10 minutes from Dad and Sarah's place. The mortgage paperwork is being processed, and this time I'm the only one with keys to my home. Mom still tries to reach out sometimes through relatives or mutual acquaintances. She claims she's changed, that she's sorry, that she wants to make amends. But I'm done giving chances to people who see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Yesterday, I had dinner with my real family to celebrate my upcoming house purchase. As we sat around Sarah and Dad's dining table, sharing jokes and making plans for my housewarming party, I realized something. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. And sometimes letting go of toxic relationships is the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. In 2 weeks, I'll be signing the papers for my new house. Dad's already planning to help me paint the walls, and Sarah's been sending me links to furniture she thinks would look perfect in my living room. This is what family should be: people who support you, love you, and would never dream of hurting you for their own gain. As for Mom, Richard, and Emily, they can keep their perfect family photos and their manipulative games. I've got something better: a real family, a clear conscience, and soon a house with exactly 1 set of keys.